There is something to be said for that in the short term, and in, you know, just kind of prop it up just a little bit if you got something, and just pop the clutch a little bit, maybe. But not when things are spiraling out of control. Me personally, I say let it go. For one reason. I happen to know of a guy named, I don't know, Kondratiev is what they spell his name in the history books like 14 different ways. He's a guy who was an economist for Stalin. And Stalin said, "So, tell me, before I suck the blood out of everyone, tell me, which system is better, communism or capitalism?" This dope apparently didn't recognize he was being asked that question by Stalin. I think the question is, you whatever one you're for. He said, let me think about it. He did. He studied. He came back with what he calls the Kondratiev wave. To me, the Lord's house is a house of order. Everything is a pattern. Everything is a pattern. You see patterns in everything. See if you recognize this pattern as winter, spring, summer, and fall. He came back to Stalin and he said, you know what? I have an answer for you. Let me explain. I call it the Kondratiev wave. If you look at 1929, anybody heard of the 1920 Depression? Yeah, a few people. You never heard about it, you never read about it in school, I can guarantee you that. If you heard about it, you're either really super smart or you heard it from our show. The Depression of 1920 was just as bad as 29. But you don't hear about it. Why? Because Coolidge and Harding, they said, you know what we should do? Cut taxes and cut spending by 50%. And they did. They did. And a little thing called the Roaring Twenties happened. Oh, it was so horrible. It gave Americans the opportunity to have phones, refrigerators, and cars for the first time. So, 1920s, here we are, 1920s, things are really horrible because Woodrow Wilson. And it starts to come up in the 1920s. And then Hoover comes in and we start to do all kinds of programs. And what happens is it comes down because this is, have you ever heard of green shoots? Oh, the green shoots in the economy, they're great. Springtime, green shoots, summer, fall, winter, spring, summer, fall, winter. It's a cycle. And if you look at it, 1929, here comes the Great Depression, lasts a little longer because 1949, 46 to 49, it starts to come back up. 1969, we enter our summer period. And then 1997, we start coming down. 2008, we start to crash. Here we are now. And this relies on us now because we have come off this Kondratiev wave. But his theory was, what happens is it's just a cycle. It goes through periods. And there is winter when it seems horrible, seems like it will never end. You should live back east. It never ends. Everything is gray, everything is bleak, everything is awful. Awful, cold. And that is the depressionary period. That's the part where everybody feels like I believe we're about to feel. That's winter. And then all of a sudden you see one thing, a spark. It's called a green shoot. And you're like, oh my gosh, look at that. And it takes off, and that spreads all across the economy. And it's a time of optimism. You're like, oh my gosh, it's a time of ideas. It is in time, 1949, what were we doing? We were building cars, we were inventing, we were building homes, we were building refrigerators. It was a time of expansion. The same as the 1920s. It is spring. Then you reach a period of summer. And arrogance sets in. Because you've had spring and now you're in summer. Have you ever gotten to the point in summer you're like, oh, jeez, this is never going to end? It's a summer, the period of arrogance, where we're America. Nothing will stop us now. We cannot fail. It will always be sunshine. Summer. And then you start to see the leaves change. And somebody says, wow, it's going to get cold. The leaves are changing. No, it'll always be summer. No, but all the leaves are changing. There's something wrong with the trees then. We should dig them all up and put them in greenhouses. No. You should recognize that the time to prepare is coming. You should prepare for cold weather. Because what's happened is we had this great growth, and then we became arrogant, and we made mistakes because we were arrogant. Things change. Things that were good ideas no longer work anymore. They start to shimmy apart. And what happens? This is what he told Stalin. The capitalist system is much better because in that fall, what we do here in a communist country is we try to prop it up. And so we take all these bad ideas and we push them back up with money. Where the capitalists let it fail and reset. And when it resets, it takes all of the crap, all of the bad stuff that wasn't working anymore and gets rid of it. And there's a fundamental transformation of the economy, not the system, of the economy. And then the green shoot happens. He said, in the end, capitalism will win. Stalin's response, he killed him. He killed him. This, I believe, is true. We are now in the greenhouse taking all of the trees and trying to convince ourselves that these trees should still be growing. Quick, more fertilizer, more fertilizer. Let the trees go to sleep. They need to. It's natural. We keep putting stimulus money into the system, trying to push this up, trying to bend nature. It's not going to work. And in the end, this time, because there is no way, as David Barton, I swear to you, if anybody has rope, please take it away from your neighbor. Because when David Buckner comes out and he starts talking about how much our debt is and what it really is, where does this go? Where does this go? Now, there's one other thing I want you to know, and I've talked about it